The town of Silent Hollow was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're being watched even when you're alone. Nestled deep within a valley, it was encircled by an ancient, sprawling forest. This forest was not just any forest. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the trees whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. The forest was a place of shadows, of whispers. It was as if the very air was alive with the murmurs of the past, carrying tales of forgotten times. Legends spoke of the Sinister Strangers. These were not mere stories to scare children. They were warnings passed down through generations, entities that haunted the woods. They were said to be the spirits of those who had once lived in the valley, now cursed to wander the forest for eternity. They were rarely seen but always felt. A cold shiver down your spine, a sudden gust of wind, the feeling of being watched. These were the signs of their presence. Their presence hung heavy in the air. It was a suffocating feeling, as if the very atmosphere was thick with their malevolence, a constant threat on the darkest nights. When the moon was hidden behind clouds and the forest was plunged into pitch-black darkness, that was when they were most active. The townsfolk knew to stay clear. They had learned through bitter experience that the forest was not a place for the living. They whispered tales of those who wandered too deep, stories of brave souls who had ventured into the forest, never to return, those who dared to tempt fate. They were often driven by curiosity or desperation, but whatever their reasons, their fates were always the same. None who met the Sinister Strangers lived to tell the tale. Their disappearances were marked by eerie signs, abandoned campsites, signs of struggle, and a pervasive sense of dread. Or so the stories went. These tales were recorded in old, tattered journals, passed down from one generation to the next. Generations passed, and the legends endured. Each new generation added their own experiences to the growing body of lore. A chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the safety of their homes. The forest was a constant, looming presence, a boundary between the known and the unknown. Silent Hollow remained cloaked in fear. The mist that often shrouded the town seemed to carry the whispers of the forest, a constant reminder of the danger that lay just beyond. Forever haunted by the unknown, the Sinister Strangers were more than just legends. They were a part of the very fabric of Silent Hollow, a dark thread woven into its history. These stories are just that, stories. They can't be real. They are just figments of overactive imaginations, tales spun to keep people in line. Marcos scoffed at the stories. He had heard them all his life. Tales of the Sinister Strangers who haunted the woods. He was a young man, full of energy and a burning desire to uncover the truth. Full of fire and disbelief, he couldn't accept the fear that gripped the town. He refused to accept the tales of the Sinister Strangers, dismissing them as mere fabrications. To him, they were nothing more than folklore, stories passed down to entertain or frighten. A way to scare children and justify fear, nothing more. He believed that people used these stories to explain the unexplainable.
I'll prove them wrong. I'll show them that there's nothing to be afraid of. I'll show them it's all just superstition. I'll expose the truth and put an end to these ridiculous tales.
He yearned to prove the town wrong, to show them that their fears were baseless, to expose the legends as mere superstition, nothing more than shadows and whispers. One particularly dark night, Marcos made a decision. He would confront the legends head-on. He would venture into the woods, the very heart of the stories. He would confront the darkness, face the unknown, and prove that the Sinister Strangers were nothing more than figments of their imagination. He would prove that the Sinister Strangers were nothing more than figments of their imagination, shadows in the night. Armed with only a lantern and his unwavering skepticism, he stepped into the forest, into the unknown, ready to challenge the darkness and uncover the truth. The forest seemed to close in around him, its ancient trees whispering secrets of the past. Each step he took felt like a journey into another world, a world where time stood still and nature reigned supreme. The air grew heavy, suffocating. The fog wrapped around him like a shroud, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. It was as if the forest itself was alive, breathing down his neck. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled his nostrils, a reminder of the cycle of life and death that played out in this secluded realm. He knelt down, touching the ground, feeling the pulse of the forest beneath his fingertips. The further he walked, the darker it became. Shadows lengthened, and the light from his lantern seemed to be swallowed by the encroaching darkness. It was a place where the sun's rays dared not venture. His lantern cast long, dancing shadows. They flickered and swayed, creating eerie shapes that seemed to come alive in the dim light. Each shadow told a story, a tale of the unknown. They twisted and turned, mimicking his movements, mocking him. It was as if the forest was playing a cruel game, testing his resolve and courage. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the sound of his own breath and the crunch of leaves beneath his feet. Each step echoed in the stillness, a reminder of his solitude.
It's just my imagination, just the forest playing tricks on me. He whispered these words to himself, trying to find comfort in the sound of his own voice.
He felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. Goosebumps rose, and a chill ran down his spine. It was an instinctual reaction, a warning from his body, as if he were being watched. His eyes darted around, searching the shadows for any sign of movement. But there was nothing, only the oppressive darkness. He pushed the feeling aside. He couldn't afford to let fear take hold. Not now. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He wouldn't give in to fear, not yet. He clenched his fists, feeling the strength in his hands, a reminder of his determination. He pressed on, deeper into the heart of the forest. Each step was a testament to his resolve, a journey into the unknown where only the brave dared to tread. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwined overhead, forming a canopy that blocked out the moon. The darkness was almost complete now. His lantern seemed to be the only source of light for miles. He stopped for a moment, listening. The forest held its breath. He could have sworn he heard a twig snap nearby. "Who's there?" He turned slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. There, in the shadows, he saw it, a pair of eyes, glowing with an unnatural light. They stared at him, unblinking. He froze, paralyzed by fear. He tried to rationalize. An animal. It has to be an animal. But deep down, he knew this was something different, something sinister. The eyes vanished as quickly as they had appeared. He was alone again, or so he thought. He felt a presence nearby, watching him, toying with him. He stumbled back, his foot caught on a root, and he fell. The lantern tumbled from his grasp, its light extinguished, plunging him into absolute darkness. Panic surged through him. He scrambled for the lantern, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He fumbled in the darkness, blindly searching. Then he felt it. A cold, clammy hand closed around his wrist. He recoiled in horror, his blood turning to ice. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. He was frozen in place, his mind racing. The hand tightened its grip, its touch sending a jolt of terror through his body. He thrashed wildly, desperately trying to break free, but the grip was too strong. He was being dragged, pulled through the undergrowth, scratched by thorns and branches. He caught glimpses of movement in the darkness around him, shadows shifting just beyond his field of vision. He knew then that he was surrounded. There was no escape. He was dragged for what felt like an eternity. Time lost all meaning. He was lost in a maze of darkness and fear. The hand finally released him. He collapsed on the forest floor, his body battered and bruised. He lay there for a moment, gasping for breath. He looked up. He was surrounded by them, the Sinister Strangers. They were tall and slender, their bodies shrouded in darkness. Their eyes glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. They were like nothing he had ever seen before. Nightmares given form. They circled him slowly, their movements fluid and silent, like predators sizing up their prey. He was trapped, alone in the darkness, with creatures beyond his comprehension. He couldn't understand their words, but their intent was clear. They were toying with him, savoring his fear. He closed his eyes, wishing it was all a dream, a terrible nightmare from which he would soon awaken. But the feeling of their presence was all too real. He was living his worst nightmare. He didn't know how long he lay there, surrounded by the Sinister Strangers. They didn't harm him physically, but the psychological torment was unbearable. They had stripped him of his skepticism, his defiance, leaving him a hollow shell of his former self. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone. He stumbled to his feet, disoriented and broken. He wandered through the forest for hours until he finally emerged on the outskirts of Silent Hollow. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to break through the darkness. He had never been so grateful to see the sun. He returned to town a changed man, his youthful arrogance replaced with a haunted look in his eyes. He never spoke of what he had seen that night, but the terror in his eyes spoke volumes. The townsfolk knew. They had seen it in the eyes of others who had dared to venture too deep into the forest. Marcos became a recluse, forever haunted by the memory of the Sinister Strangers. The forest remained, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of town. And the Sinister Strangers, they remained as well, watching, waiting, for the next unsuspecting soul to cross their path.